Before we talk about the issue, let's look at where are we in the supply chain? We are not all over the supply chain. We are at one level. When you have the feedstock, so the rocks, the salts that are coming, that are raw, that are barely pre-treated, they have to be refined. The lithium to go in the battery, it needs to be 99.9% pure. Otherwise, the connections don't work. The battery doesn't store the energy and doesn't give the energy back. So this is the role that we intend to have in the system. Beyond that, you have the cathodes. They produce the material for inside the battery. You have the battery, you have the EV vehicles, and you have the recyclers, or the recyclers of the battery, but they will recycle material that is not pure as well. So we are an essential part of this system, and we will show that we are covering a critical gap in the industry, because not everybody know and realize that there is a gap in the industry, but there is, and you will see how we can contribute to make this industry more sustainable. So what is the main fact? Okay, we want to get out of the fossil fuel. We want our fleet of transport to be electrical, to be more sustainable. So by 2035 or 45, almost all vehicles will be electrical. And we can see here that on this graph, the share of the internal combustion, which is decreasing rapidly, and in the opposite way, the increased EV penetration. This needs a total change of business model from the EV industry. Today we're here. We are just at the beginning. So the industry is not transitioning, it's creating. Basically, we are creating something new. And we must ensure that there is no gap in the supply chain, so that we can ensure that the supply chain itself is sustainable, not only each company. So what is being done in Europe? Incredible announcement. All the large companies and some new ones supported by big automotive industries are creating large gigafactory to fabricate cathodes. There will be the anodes that go together to make the battery work. And batteries. It's everywhere. It's more than 500 gigawatts of lithium-ion battery capacity that are announced by 2030. It means that we need between 500,000 and 800,000 tons of battery-grade lithium product. Do you know what is the production of today's in the world of lithium battery-grade product? A bit less than 600,000, so 560,000. This is the world production. And we are going to need in Europe more than the world production today. And they are supported by the EU, by the legislation, the Critical Raw Material Act, that is pushing to get production of critical raw material, like the lithium, like the nickel, cobalt, manganese, but lithium is the most critical. In EU, difficult to mine in the EU, so they put 10%. Then you have 40% that should be processed in the EU. So they are pushing to get refining. They're pushing to get the recycling and the refining. 50% from the recycling. And no more than 65% of EU annual consumption of its strategic raw material shall be at any relevant stage of the production in the supply chain delivered by only a single country. You will see that it's not the case today. It means that upstream of the cathode, in the refining, in the production of raw material, we need a lot of investment. Downstream of the battery, we also need a lot of investment. So what is being done today? This is an example. I have not put, it's not me who created this, because it's an analytic institute that creates that, but there are a little more than these amount of recycling plants all over Europe. So you can see that many huge companies, big companies have invested into recycling the batteries because they are themselves sometimes producer of cathodes, producer of batteries, so they invest also in recycling. Or they are big business of recycling in general, so they have to be also present in the battery recycling. So really something is being done and it's moving forward very fast, but the process of recycling to get what they call black mass, you know, when you put the battery in a recycling, you have part of all the plastic elements have to be sorted. Then you have the aluminum and things, metals, which can be used somewhere else. And then you have all the critical raw material, which are a black powder, which is an oxide, a sulfate, and they can treat it a little bit, they can clean it, start to clean it, but it's not enough to enter into the battery. So they need to recycle that. And in Europe, we know how to do everything. We have nickel refineries, maybe not enough, but we have some. We have cobalt refineries, we know to, everything it's complex, but it's the same system, and we've been doing it for many years. Lithium, no. There is only one company that does lithium refining, and the product is not refined enough for battery. It's just for pharmaceutical matters, and it's in UK. It's a very good company. They have the plan to do better and more to diversify their business model, but no one else. So there are plenty of projects. But definitely in Europe, we need to accelerate the downstream of the lithium-ion battery recycling. Why? Because we don't produce lithium. And even the Critical Raw Material Act imposes only 10% of the production of material from Europe. So the main source in the future is going to be this, recycled battery. So where is the refining today? So we were saying no more than 60% at any stage. The refining, the figure is approximative depending on where you get the information from. But 87% of the global lithium hydroxide, which is used for the best batteries, they have the best performance, is coming from China. The Chinese have invested 20 years ago in processes of lithium refinery, which they did not sometimes even invent. The patent was free. It's patent from the 70s. This is existing. But what they did, because they foresee that, we are very right, they foresee that the EV is going to be the main source of transportation. So they say, let's build refineries, let's grab resources. And what they did is that when they acquired some resources, a rock, a salt, it has a specific matter. And why don't we do not refine it? It's because it's difficult. It's very light material. And when you refine it, you need to separate it from all other impurities, and it costs a lot of money. It's a very difficult process. And so they dedicate their refinery to one product. So they have a hard rock, they call it spodumene, they make a refinery specific for this one. They have a salt, a brine that is coming from South America, they make a refinery especially for this. And we have to change this model because more than the production of today will be needed as a demand in Europe in 2030. So we need to accelerate the refinery investments in the EU. What is being done? You know, over 100 lithium refineries in operation today. Some of them are very small. Some of them are big, but it's about 600,000 tons of capacity. And you have 100 lithium refineries, but some refineries are produced 40, 80,000. Others are very small, 2,000, 3,000. In Europe, identified today about 24 projects. Not enough to supply the demand. How do you refine the analysis? You refine the analysis and you say, that was the, let's say, I would tend to say that I think that was a misjudgment in Europe. We decided to give funds to companies that have new ideas, technologies which are not used in China, not used in other countries. So 18 of the 24 projects here are using new technology, novelties. And I'm an oil and gas guy. When I know that when we do novelties, you need to qualify. It takes time. And the new technology doesn't work at first. It takes, sometimes a cycle of 5, when you're lucky, 10, 15, 20 years to make it work. So we have a huge risk on some of these technologies. I will not deny the capability of any of my competitors, because they are not really competitors, we are helpers there. We need to solution the problem. And everybody is needed. And of course, what they are doing is fundamental and essential, but it will not come on time. So we will be still dependent on Asia, China, and other countries for our resources of refined lithium. What I can say after, when we analyzed this, is that we see that 80% of the project, they claim to have their own source of material. So it means what? They have their source of hard rock, their source of salt, sometimes geothermal. People think what they think about this solution. I will tell you in private after. But it means they will not, or they are not planning to use recycled material. So we will have a source of material available in Europe, but people are not planning to use it. So it's difficult to believe, but when you see that you have a huge company that are investing in cathodes, in battery, in manufacturing vehicles, in recycling, no huge company, no big company, not a single one is involved there. That's something which means that there is an element of the supply chain risk that has not been taken into account. It has been understood by the regulators because the critical raw material is effectively trying to reply to this. So this has been identified, but it seems that the industry has not digested yet the issue. Then only a handful of refineries will be capable of refining lithium intermediate. We will be able. So we will contribute, but we are small. Well, even if it's huge investment, but we will be small in the picture. So what we created is that we can take the rock that come from Australia, Africa, Brazil, we can convert it into an hydroxide. We have 2 trains that are identical, and we can convert the salt into carbonate for batteries that are, let's say, a little bit less expensive, but give a little bit less power. But Tesla is using this very well. BID in China is fantastic. I love the cars. I mean, this is working very well. So the market is demanding this type of product. We can do it. And we can introduce intermediate, which come from the recycling as lithium sulfate or lithium carbonate, which is, after they treated the black mass, they make a small treatment of the product, and then they can deliver this, and we can introduce this at different points. So what we did, we took what the Chinese have done perfectly, but we merged it and we improved it. So instead of having one line dedicated to one product, we created a plant which can take any product, almost. Not any product because it's very complicated. But so we need to test. So we test this in the laboratory. Today we have tested even more than 19 samples of everything, the rock, the salts, the intermediate product. And our design is always working. So we always reach battery grade product. But now we know that if we have intermediate product, for instance, this is a furnace to treat the rocks, a furnace to melt part of the impurities at 1100 degrees. So sometimes when you have too much impurities, it glasses and the furnace has to be stopped and cleaned by hand. So it means you go from 1100 degree to 0, takes 1 week. Then you have 2 weeks of cleaning by hand. Then you have to bring it back up. But with our system, we don't stop the plant. So people do not stop the work. So there is a very big social impact because we have a better availability and the industry is working with a more stable production capacity. So we have created a system which allows us to be more flexible and which enable us to treat the recycled product. Our capacity, the first plant, 80,000 tons, probably reached in 2029. We have the first plant, and our MD and our Director General in Germany is in the room, is going to be in Emden, very close to Holland, on the other side of the Ems River. And second plant, potentially, to be ready in 2030 to try to reply to the demand, in fact. But we aim at being a leader in the European lithium refining. But how big are we? You know, this is our plant. This is the recycled capacity. And by 2030, we will not be able to treat more than 50% of our capacity. So the need is huge. It's just a huge gap. So when we are planning now, we are in itself a sustainable tool because it's a company. So that will help the industry to be more independent and Europe to be more independent from other countries. Imagine a few years ago, nobody would have thought that the Russian gas crisis would happen. Well, we are not. We want political peace, but we have to try to assess the risk of what is the route of one critical material is stopped, at least for several months. The whole industry is stopping. In Europe, the jobs are lost. So the sustainability is at that level. And of course, our company is also trying to strive to be net zero, but it's very difficult when you have a big furnace. So we have each of the scope of the, I manage each of the scope of the ESG, you know, energy, transportation, treatment. We are trying to assess. We have to integrate in our scope even what the producer is doing. So what the guy is doing in Australia or in South America, we have to integrate it in the scope. So we have to choose. It's already difficult to find one supplier, but we have to try to integrate at least their elements and strive with them to be better. So we are doing this, but we are small and we need more. So we are not competitors with the other refiner. We are just working together. We have to do that together to be sustainable. But as a company, we also define from inception. This is where I used to work already before, even if my industry was not that clean. We always try to be as clean as possible, and we worked from inception in trying to be as much as possible, you know, participating to the circular economy. Our plant will be 100% using 100% renewable energies. We are planning to test hydrogen, so we will be hydrogen ready. We have selected one of the contractors, which is the most competent in the hydrogen industry. And we will be able, as soon as the hydrogen plants and network are ready, to plug that in the plant and to replace the gas, of course, if it's working. But we already know that with 50 to 70% of it hydrogen, it's working. The furnace works differently, the flame works differently with hydrogen than with gas, but we have to adapt and we will do research. We will create a research center in Luxembourg in cooperation with different universities, Luxembourg, Emden-Leer, where we have the plant, maybe in France for the next plant we are trying to define, or UK. And together we will define all these plans and we will make it, we will improve our carbon emissions and all the, but we are taking not only carbon emissions, we are looking at every little part where we can have an impact of the different elements of the ESG class. So it's gender equality, clean water center. For instance, we are using 600,000 cubic meters of water in the plant, but we recirculate 450. So we try to maximize the recirculation so that we minimize the impact on the environment. Affordable clean energy, responsible consumption and production, climate action. We are committed to sustainability because it's in our gene. We are a sustainable company because we are filling a gap which helps the industry to be sustainable. So we have created for each, even before we start to build, we already have the plan. For each of the elements, we are engineering the solution that will try to minimize the GHG. I gave you the example of the replacement of the gas by the hydrogen. So you can see that you have gas here. It's not there. So we have a target post 2030. But also, if we simple things like many of you are doing every day in the work, it's like, where do we supply? If we change the supply source, we have invested in Ghana for a little mine. We will try to treat part of the plant. We will try to do it in Ghana so that when we transport, instead of transporting 100,000 tons, we transport 15. So less impact on the environment. We will increase our share of recycling material from 15–20% at the beginning of the production to 50% by 2030. Where is coming the recycled material? Europe. Yeah. Then you immediately decrease your impact on the GHG. All these things that you are doing in your industry, we are doing as well, and we are thinking about it from the beginning. So we have a plan for each and every package of our plant, each and every product, reagent, byproduct even that we want to sell. We have a plan with a target, and everybody who will work and who is working, but we are very few today, but who will work in the company will be coming with the plan already in place. So they know they have to adhere. So when we were discussing yesterday about you need to bring people together, it's a huge effort that people have to make when their mindset has to change after working 5, 10, 20 years in the same way, and they have to change. Here, they come and they will have to do it. So that's after, maybe we will change and we will improve. That's for sure. That's the objective. But at least they come and they will have, from the beginning, they will have this impulsion. So that's what I wanted to say. But at the end, the last part is that we prepare this from inception to be ESG compliant, but we need support. We are not alone to do that. And when my question of the previous speaker yesterday, who is the accelerator? I mean, we know that this will be profitable. I mean, this is obvious because there is such a gap that people will pay to get a production in Europe, and even more if it's ESG compliant. But we need support from Europe, and they are doing it. I mean, they are putting some regulations. That's good. But we need also financing institutions. We need the companies. We need to work together. If we want this industry to be sustainable, we will not do it alone. We just contribute. But we have to do it all together. All together, it's the whole community in Europe, the whole industry. And that's the message I wanted to pass. So that, I think I concluded the presentation in time. Well, at least with my timing.